Okay, everybody. Hi. Thanks for joining me. Okay, I just want to make sure it started. Okay. Hey, everybody. Hi. Thanks for joining me. Okay, see, I have the sound on. I turned it off. Why is the sound playing? Okay. Or is that yours that was playing? Angie. Was that yours that was playing? Yes. I thought it was mine playing. Sorry, everyone. We're having some technical difficulties here. Turn the sound on the video off, Angie. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining me. I'm going to try to jump back and forth between the video window and the chat just so I can see what people are saying. Hi, everyone. I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I'm so not prepared. I just know I want to talk today, or at least answer any questions anybody has. So I guess I can just wait a minute and see if everybody comes in. And again, I have Angie with me, and I think she already said hi. She's waving now down there. And Angie will moderate the chat too. Hi, Julie. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to mention was that obviously yesterday, I know a lot of you saw, I had finally I keep saying outed myself, and the fact that that I've been visiting Steve for the past 6 months, and Angie has as well. And overall, I as I explained in my post, overall, I wanted to keep it private for a lot of reasons, but I guess it was pretty good. I mean, everybody was pretty supportive and pretty nice. We had a few comments from some people, and I was probably a little more defensive than I needed to be because I really don't blame anybody for questioning things because I know I would do that as well. So I probably shouldn't have been so sensitive about it. But I think it was because of the fact that that's the reason I didn't say anything, or one of the reasons why I didn't say anything in the beginning. And then when some people were like, well, are you only in this for the money? Are you only in this for this and that and whatever reason? And no. I will say first off that it costs more money to visit than I would ever get money. So no, I'm not in it for the money. Steve is well aware of that fact. I say it to him all the time. And I know people, somebody said, well, you could just say that. Well, yeah, I do say that, but I also know Steve well enough to know he's not going to give me anything. So I certainly wouldn't be in it for the money. So Steve will be helping out, in his words, his mom and his daddy. That's it. So there's definitely nothing in it for me. And again, between gas and vending and everything, like I said, it's costing more than I would ever get in return. So that's the first thing. I just want to make sure that's clear. The other thing that honestly did not even enter my mind when I was writing the post, it was the one thing I guess I wasn't worried about. And so I was surprised when it came up because a couple people, like the first guy that actually mentioned it, I didn't even get what he was asking because it was so not in my mind. No, I am not Steve's girlfriend, and neither is Angie. Okay? I shouldn't laugh. No offense to Steve or anything, but I'm just not into him that way at all. At all. And again, he's well aware of that fact. So I told somebody in one of the comments, I said, if you knew my relationship with Steve, you would laugh at how hilarious that is. Because no, Steve, I do not have that kind of relationship at all. And again, didn't even occur to me that someone could think I was like the latest, gold digging hoe. No, not a gold digger and not a hoe. But so I keep laughing because it's that ridiculous to me that anybody would think that I was romantically interested in Steve. So I just want to put that out there right away because I thought it was funny that people thought that, but why wouldn't they? Because there are a lot of women that write Steve and trying to get his attention in that way. And we know that he had visits from, or a visit at least, one visit from somebody else who claimed that they were interested in that way. So I guess I shouldn't blame people for asking, but it's really funny to me. Anyway, so I don't know what else I wanted to say about that. Uh, let's see. Thanks. I know, I mean, a couple people said that you don't owe anybody any explanation. And it's not like I feel like I owe it to people, but I did want people to understand. And I know some people think, like you're in it for the attention. And again, if I was in it for the attention, I wouldn't have waited 6 months to actually say anything about it. I would have been posting that picture, our picture the first day we visited. The first time that we visited, it was actually Angie, Sandy, and I, because Angie and I did not know the ropes, as you say. We didn't know anything about it. And so we all went together so Sandy could kind of show us what to do. And we took pictures that day. And, and I told Sandy not to post any. And I told Steve not to say anything to anybody. And I honestly didn't plan on keeping it to myself for this long. I just knew that I wanted to keep it to myself in the beginning. And again, it's private to me. I wanted to get to know Steve first better. I mean, I knew Steve. I've been talking to him for a while. But, in person, you talk for 3.5 hours. That's a long time, and you certainly get to know someone a lot better 3.5 hours every week. And I always think that I'm going to run out of things to say. And Steve and I have no problem carrying on a conversation for that long. It's kind of crazy. And we haven't played cards or anything like that. And I've always asked him, I said, would you rather play cards or would you do something else other than just talking? And he's always like, nah, it's fine. So, okay. If you just want to sit here and talk with me. We do laugh a lot. A lot. I think I put in the comments that we talk about the stupidest stuff. It really is. We talk about such stupid stuff, but it's hilarious. And some of it is about stupid things what we're gonna do when he gets out. I won't even go into all of it. And just other stuff, So it's no different than when you're getting together with your friends and you're just having mindless chat for a couple hours. You go out to dinner or whatever. It's no different than that. I think that if anybody watched the video that Mark did after he visited, I think he kind of covered what it's like. If anyone has any questions about that, anybody has any questions about like what it's like to visit, how it's set up, anything like that, I don't want to retread over whatever Mark already said in his, since a lot of the same people are probably watching. But if you have any questions, now's the time to ask. Yeah, Steve likes talking about stupid stuff. That's why we laugh so much, because it is so silly. Jail visit, what you can wear, all the rules make visitors feel like criminal. Bless you. Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. We went a couple weeks ago, and it's very strict about what you can wear. Yes, you have to pass through metal detectors, and you can't have anything metal on. And once you go in with whatever you have on, you can't take anything off. So if you have a sweatshirt or a sweater on, you can't take it off if you get warm. That's a big thing. We went in a couple weeks ago, and luckily Angie was thinking ahead, because she just said, I think I'm going to take this sweatshirt off because I have a feeling it's going to be warm, right? I'm worried I'm going to get too warm. So she took her sweatshirt off. Well, we walked into the room and it was like a sauna. The minute the doors opened, you were just like hit with this warm, hot air. It was what, Angie, you're gonna have to unmute yourself a second. What was the temperature, did they say, in the visiting room? I thought Steve told us or something like that later. It was over 100 degrees, right? I think you're still muted. You're not answering. I think Steve said it was like 110 degrees.
They said it was 114 in there.
114.
Yeah.
It was awful. And everybody that walked in was the same thing. They were just like, oh my God, it's so hot. And the guards that were in there weren't really doing anything. They were just acting like no big deal, as everyone was just like, we're going to die. We're going to die. Luckily, I had a light sweatshirt on and I just rolled up the sleeves, but still, it was miserable. And then the sergeant came in and he lasted all of 2 minutes. He was like, oh, hell no, I'm not dealing with this. And he finally went and tried to look at the thermostats, but he said that they were all as low as they could go and he couldn't figure what was going on. But this is the first time they've ever done this, at least in the time I've been there. The sergeant actually said, if anybody has a sweatshirt or a jacket on that you'd like to remove, go ahead. And they would never let you do that otherwise. And yeah, when Steve walked in, he was just like, holy crap, like, why is it so hot? And one of the female guards came in and she's like, it's hot as hell in here. Like, that's all everybody said. Fortunately, about an hour, maybe an hour and a half into the visit, it finally started, like, whatever, the air kicked in or something, and it finally cooled off. But it was miserable. So yes, prison is hell to begin with, but it actually felt like hell that day.
It was like people were leaving early from visits. They weren't lasting the whole 3 hours. It was terrible. If I would have worn my sweatshirt, I probably would have passed out.
Yeah, you would have, because I
It
know,
was
yeah, I know you have an issue when you get too warm.
it was not
Eric,
good.
it's funny you mentioned that when you said, just you're mentioning hearing your name over the compound. One of the things that I didn't know until I started visiting, because how would you know, is Steve has to walk. His unit is in a different building completely. So he has to walk outside in order to get to the visiting room. And I think it took about the third time when he was all wet that I finally was like, why are you wet all the time? He's like, because it's raining. I'm like, oh, you go outside? I didn't even know. I think it was like 2 months after I started visiting before I realized that he actually has to go outside to walk between buildings. So yeah, I just thought he was like always sweaty or something. I didn't know. A couple of times I think he said he'd just taken a shower or whatever. So I just thought, oh, whatever. But no, it was because he walked outside in the rain. So yes, Steve at least has seen the snow and he sees the rain, and he probably doesn't like walking in the rain, but yeah, so he does get to see the snow and everything when he walks outside. So he does have a little bit of time outside in the winter, and he likes the snow, and he likes the cold, so that doesn't bother him too much. But just thought I'd say that, because how would you know that? I wouldn't know. I certainly didn't know it until I started visiting. So does anybody have any questions about any of that before I move on to something different? Or I just wanted to be able to give people the opportunity to ask anything. If you did have concerns or questions, or wanted to ask, how did you get on the list, or how did you do this, or whatever, I mean, just feel free. I'm an open book. I don't want to anyone to feel like you can't ask, because you can. Nothing? Nobody's got anything? I got 90% of my info about the case from you. Oh, thank you. Anything to break the mundane. Yeah. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm in a little town. Is there anything I can't talk about? Yeah, I can't talk about obviously the case and about the current investigation. Those things I can't talk about. I mean, if there have been little things sometimes I've said, for example, when this whole issue with the disposal of the bones first came up, I asked Steve right away if he'd ever been notified about any bones being disposed of or any evidence being disposed of, and he told me no, and that he said was fine. I could say that wasn't top secret information. Yes, Steve does know how many people are supporting him, absolutely, and he gets letters from all over the world. I will just say, for anybody who does write him, um, he's really behind. He hasn't written many letters lately. It's actually hard for him to keep up with the writing. He ordered a typewriter, and that has been really slow in getting there. So, but once that comes, hopefully he can start keeping up with writing a little bit more. It's actually a little bit hard for him to do all that writing. Okay, there's someone saying, how did you get on the list? Does Steven read? Yeah, well, yeah, he reads. Or do you mean like, what does he like to read? Of course he reads. Steve likes to read. He reads interesting things. I said, I doubt there's many people that really know that Steve is very much into reading about alternative fuel sources, and he likes reading about windmills or whatever, and about solar powered energy and things like that. He likes stuff like that. What made me go see him? Well, he asked me, or he told me he was going to send me the form, and yeah, Eric, I've noticed that from some of your posts. Okay, the first time I ever talked to Steve, I was at Sandy's house. I got to know Sandy, and I was at Sandy's house, and Steve called, and I talked to him there. Actually, the first few times I talked to him were always just by Sandy. And I can't talk about Steve's theory or anything. I mean, he did write an affidavit once, but I can't talk. I won't talk about his feelings about the case or suspects or things like that. So that's what, but most of my interaction with Steve was just from that. And then he actually asked Sandy to get in touch with me about something he needed help with. And so Sandy told me how to set up an account so he could call me. And I had never written to him or anything ever. And then he called me because he wanted my help with something. And then that's how the first time he and I ever talked directly. And then it just kind of went from there. I helped him out with what he needed, and we just got to be friends from there. And it was, Steve had been talking about putting me on the list since, I think, since last summer. Or not last, yeah, since last summer, since about July, I think was the first time he brought it up. And he, it didn't happen. He didn't send me the form, and he didn't bring it up again. So I was like, okay, whatever. I just didn't think it was going to happen. And I never thought it was going to begin with, because I just didn't have any indication that he would ever put me on the list. I actually thought I wouldn't, because I was married, and, thought he'd save it for any single women or something. I don't know. And all of a sudden I was on the phone with him in September, and he said, or actually it was the beginning of September. Yeah, it was right. I think it was Labor Day weekend. And he called me and he said, I'm putting that form in the mail to you. I'm like, oh, okay, that's it. And we were approved by the end of September. It actually went pretty quick. And then we visited for the first time. I think it was October 6th or something like that. I just looked today at the date and I forgot already. October 6th, that's when it was. That was the first day. Because we had to wait for Sandy because she was on vacation. Steve kept saying, well, when are you going to come? You've been approved for a couple weeks. And we're like, well, we're going to wait till we can go with Sandy for the first time. So that's how it all went down. Yeah, the phone calls from prison are very expensive. It's something like $3.89 or something for a half-hour phone call. And that's in state. If you're out of state, it's even more. It's 5 something. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll through here. Oh, thanks, Chris. Okay, so now that I put all that out there, again, anything else? Anybody else have any questions? $8. Eric, was that for 30 minutes? Brendan's phone calls are only 15 minutes. So, but I mean, so you just cut it in half. $15 for 10 minutes? That's insane. Yeah, Steve and I don't talk as much on the phone anymore, just because, sometimes he'll call me in between visits, but usually he just waits until I can see him in person. And he usually knows if it's snowing that I won't be there. He doesn't want me to be there either, though. He already has told me that. He gets worried if I leave and it's snowing, and he knows I live an hour and a half from the prison. So it's a 3-hour drive each, round trip. And so when it's snowing, he doesn't want me driving an hour and a half in the snow. So he's perfectly fine with it and understands when I'm not there when it's snowing. The visits are 3.5 hours. You can stay for less time if you want, but that's the maximum amount of time is 3.5 hours. The gates open at 2:15. And so that's why I'm out of communication. Well, technically I'm out of communication usually from about 12:30 when I leave my house until 8:30 when I get back home. So that's why there's always these long gaps on certain days where I'm not answering questions in the groups and I'm not available. Yes, he wants Judge Suckwitz removed for sure. Steve has 30 minutes on the phone, but as long as the phone's available, they don't care how many people you call or how many times you call people. So no, Chris Watts is not in the same prison as Steve. He is in Dodge Correctional, which is also in Waupun. It's right down the street. So he's in the same city, but he's in Dodge Correctional. Steve and I talked about it once, and he didn't think that Watts would ever be moved to Waupun. He thinks that if they were ever going to, he said they'll probably keep him in Dodge, at least for a while. If they were going to move him, they'd probably move him to Boscobel. And that was my thought as well, would be Boscobel, or Wisconsin Security, whatever it's called. Everyone just calls it Boscobel. That used to be a Supermax. It's no longer a Supermax, but it's still more fitted for more, I don't know, violent offenders, I guess. But I didn't know Dodge Correctional is usually intake. That's where they send you when they're deciding, like, or they're getting you ready to ship you to whatever prison you're going to be at. When you're doing transfers, when you leave a prison, they take you to Dodge first, and then you wait there, and then the bus takes you to court or whatever. But I guess there is some permanent um, housing. How do you put that there? And Steve said because he said that's where all the lawyers and judges and cops go. So I guess that if you are a judge or a lawyer or a cop or somebody that's involved in the justice system and you get caught doing something and you get put in prison, that's where you go because it's safer for you there. What's security like? Security, well, yeah, security is as you'd expect. I've actually been to medium security as well, and it's different. But they said they don't let you wear your jackets unless it's really lightweight or fleece. They don't let you take off any sweatshirts. You can't even wrap it around your waist or anything. If you take it in, it's staying on. No metal. You have to go through metal detectors. Inside, there are always at least 2 guards, sometimes up to 4. It depends. There's three guard stations, and there's 2 that are usually always manned, and then there's 1 that isn't always. Every once in a while, it is though. Are the number of visitors per day limited? Well, he's only allowed 1 visit per day. So if you're going to, so you do have to coordinate with other people that are on his visiting list to make sure you're not going on the same day, or unless you don't mind being there together. Because you can only have 1 visit per day. He can have up to 6 visitors at a time. And the only time he'd have that many is when, obviously the members of the family would probably go all together. Phones. The phones are on the unit. They're cordless phones though. So if the phone's available, he can use it right there. Can they watch any TV, movies in prison? Yes. Steve has a TV in his cell. They have to use headphones because you can't have the sound is not supposed to carry outside of the cell. But he has a radio and he has a TV, and he only gets okay. This is funny. He only gets essentially local channels, even though he doesn't get the CW, so no superhero shows for him. But he was talking about how he was up, he couldn't sleep, and he was watching this show all about babies being born. And Angie and I were just laughing because we're like, "What were you watching? It's on regular TV." I was thinking it was going to be like a TLC show or something like that, but no. He said he said it was on regular network TV, but it was late at night, and I have no idea what he's watching. So yes, he does, and he can watch movies too. I don't know how that works. I don't know if he can have. I don't think he can have movies in his room, but if there's movies on TV, he can watch them. How many days of the week are visits allowed? There are no visits on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday is actually canteen day, so no visits Tuesday, Wednesday. He can have 3 visits during the week, so that would be every day, Monday, Thursday, Friday. He can only have 1 visit on the weekend, so either Saturday or Sunday. And they keep saying that they might be taking visiting hours away on Sunday. Sandy actually is the one that said that she suggested if I ever wanted to go on a Sunday that I should call first, but I probably would never go on a Sunday. So he's allowed 3 visits during the week and 1 visit on the weekend. And they're always 3.5 hours, and there are no morning visits. It always starts in the afternoon, which kind of sucks. I mean, it's hard. And on a Saturday especially, it would be nice to be able to go earlier in the morning, but same time, no matter what. How do you know so much about all of this? I just learned. I had never visited anybody in prison before. So it was definitely a new experience for me. I don't know if you didn't see Marks, but it's very it's not like the TV or the movies. Okay, the tables you sit at are about 2 or 3 inches below my knee. They're tiny. They're very short, and clearly it's because they don't want anybody to be able to pass anything under the table. Your hands have to be visible at all times. Um, Steve has to sit a certain way when there's a table, and then like Steve's on one side and the visitors are on the other side, and he's not supposed to even turn around technically. So he has to keep facing forward, which is where the guards are. And like if we go to the vending machines, which are behind him, he can't even look back at the vending machines, or he's not supposed to. So it's kind of weird. I never really expected that completely, that he couldn't move. Like once you sit down, you're not moving unless you have to go to the bathroom, or if they take pictures, then they'll come and get you and you can get up for that. But yeah, that's just how it is. And you are allowed to give him a hug, before or when he first gets there and when you leave, so you can have some contact. Yep. Uh, Angie, can you type that in the chat, the where to write him? Just make sure you put his inmate number when you write him. 122987 is his inmate number. Yeah, it's very weird how they have different sets of rules for different prisons, even though they're all Wisconsin DOC. Brendan only is allowed 15-minute phone calls at Columbia. His visiting hours are different. On the weekends, they have morning visits. He can have visits Saturday and Sunday, but his visits are only 2 hours long. So it's just weird how they're all different, even though they're all run by Wisconsin DOC. And the thing is that Waupun, they do their dinner at 3 o'clock. And so that's usually when you have to wait when you go into the visiting room, you have to wait for him to come out, and it can take a half hour, sometimes even longer. So he usually comes out about 3 o'clock, and it's not like they save a meal for you or anything, but Steve prefers to eat vending machine food anyway. And he has food from his canteen that he has in his room, which I won't even talk about. Something like it's kind of gross, some of it, because he'll talk to me. He'll say that he has soup or he has chili. And I was like, well, how do you warm it up? You don't have a hot plate or a microwave. He said he just uses hot water. Like, oh, okay. And then he was ordering canteen one day and I was on the phone with him. I'm like, well, what are you ordering? He said something about fish sticks. How do you heat up fish sticks? He's like, with the hot water. Gross. I'm like, that's just wrong. He says, oh, he mixes it in with the chili or something. So, oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. He needs to get some normal food like really soon. So that's why he prefers the vending machines. But it's so dumb now, because when we first went, you could just take the food and you can go to the table. They changed it now that everything you buy at vending has to be put on a separate paper plate and has to be taken to the table. You can't take it, and all the trash has to be thrown away by the vending machines. It's so dumb. Yes, I've spilled things all over the floor before because of trying to carry too many things. It's such a dumb rule. I mean, like somebody did something. I don't know what they did exactly, but caused them to have this rule. And it's just sad when people are like getting a lot of food and you're trying to balance it all, or you're going running back and forth to put it all on plates. And it's so dumb, especially when you get ice cream or something. Let me go back. I saw there were a few more questions. Does he have prison buddies? Is he liked? Yeah, Steve is actually pretty well liked. Yeah, he might have some issues with some people. He jokes around with his neighbors. He calls them his neighbors a lot. Something to get on his nerves. When I do talk to him on the phone, you can hear people yelling in the background. They're supposed to be quiet, but they aren't. And sometimes they're not nice. Sometimes it'll be get off the, phone. So you can hear that. Do the guards treat him and you guys well? Yeah, actually they do. There are a couple guards. There's one guard in particular that is not very nice. He doesn't do anything in particular, but you can tell a lot by the guards by how they talk to him and how they talk to us when they're telling us to wrap it up. The sergeant never gives any time. He just walks by and says, Avery, and then does like, the neck thing. It means time to go, time to cut off. Most of the time they'll give you like a 5-10 minute warning. And some of the guys come over and they're like, hey, Steve, you got about 5 minutes. Okay, thanks. But there's one guard that just yells across the whole room, Avery, 5 minutes, and that guy I don't like. He actually hasn't been there. I haven't heard him in a while. So maybe he got a different job or something like that. I don't know. But that's kind of annoying that he just screams like that, because he does that for like everybody. Well, actually, he doesn't. Now that I think about it, I've only heard him do that for Steve, but I'm probably not paying attention. I am never paying attention to other things. Like, I hope there's never a riot or anything, because I'd be so much trouble because I'm not paying attention. One time the alarm was going off And I saw the guards doing something. I'm like, what's going on? And Steve's like, well, because of the alarm. I'm like, there was an alarm. So I would be so bad at this. I'm just like, Steve just started laughing at me. Like, how did you not hear that? I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. So let me go back to the questions again. Does he work? Steve actually worked in the kitchen for 2 years. He just finished up with that in February. So it'll be a couple months at least before he'll have to take another job. Might be longer than that. He likes to work. He doesn't like to work, but he hated working in the kitchen. But he likes it from the perspective that he gets to be in a cell by himself. He likes being in a cell by himself. Yes, he's done, Dave. Steve wrote to Brendan a few times in the past, but they haven't talked recently. Yeah, Steve could write to Brendan if he chose to do it. There's nothing saying he can't. He just hasn't written him in a while. Let's see what else is there that I can think of that might be of interest. There is the guy that takes the pictures, who I think this was his last week. That he's getting a different job and someone new will come in. But the guy who takes the pictures, he's a nice guy. He's always joking around with us. He knows our names when we walk in. What's up, Tracy? His last name is also Avery. And what's funny about it, well, he'll say that he says that Steve's his cousin. And it's funny because that Avery is a black guy. Steve is obviously a white guy. So the first, for a while when we'd come visit, he'd tell the guards right away, hey, they're here to see my cousin. So, and then the guards would just laugh with them. It's just funny that his name's Andre, actually, Avery. So I'm kind of sad that Andre won't be taking pictures anymore because he's actually pretty nice. He will let me or Angie have photo approval, and if we don't like it, he'll redo it, which he doesn't have to do, but he will. So I think I've got everything. So if there's anything else about that, I'll move on. You can, like, when you write, one of the things that is kind of a misconception is that people think that they're going to make the guys feel bad. Hi, Allie. People are going to think that they're going to make the guys feel bad if you talk about your life, if you talk about your vacation, or you talk about your family, or you talk about things that it's going to make the guys feel bad. It doesn't. They enjoy hearing stuff like that. They want to know what's going on with people. They like to hear about that. So don't ever feel like you're making them feel bad by talking about something, in your life. You're not. Yeah, just talk about anything. I said, it's funny. Again, if you saw my post, you would see that it's crazy how I'll be there for 3.5 hours. And then even when Angie and I went the other day, when we were on the way home, we're like, what did we talk about? Like, I don't know. It's, unless I consciously make an effort to try to remember, like I asked him a question that I wanted to remember the answer to. I always forget. I can never remember what answer was what we were laughing about, this or that or whatever. It's just, it's no different than if you were hanging out with a friend. You're just talking and you just don't even think about it. Oh yeah, Steve's aware. I mean, Steve grew up. Sorry, I'm choking. Okay, Angie, you're gonna have to talk for a minute because I'm dying.
Okay, don't die.
I'm gonna mute myself until I stop
All right.
choking.
All right, I would just say yes, he is aware. No, Allie, she's not going live after this. Not that I know of. I don't think so. I'm trying to look and see if there's anything else. Yes, inmates can write to other inmates. Anything else? Oh, I don't know if Eric Jose did a video earlier. I've been busy today. Hi, Chris. I will say, because Tracy would never say this, but all of you guys who are watching, if you haven't subscribed to Tracy's YouTube channel, you probably should subscribe so you can get notified when she does these things if you aren't already subscribed. She doesn't like to tell people to do that, but I like to tell people to do that for her. Just because I'm that way. Oh, he's going to go live and talk about the Melissa Kalinsky case. All right. Oh, thank you, Linda. I did have somebody ask earlier under our picture if he was as sweet and genuine in person. And the way that I answered that is when we were at our last visit, I did have a moment that I looked at Steve and he looked just like the picture of him that they show at the beginning of the documentary when he is a child. And when I saw that look on his face, I thought to myself, this is the moment that I wish that I could bottle up and give to all of his supporters. Because this is the essence of that hopefulness and that the limitless possibilities that we can see that he has that dream and that what he wants to do when he gets free and that childlike anything is possible, and that and moments like that are the inspiration that we know that you guys hope that he has, and just know that he does have that. And getting to see that is just so priceless. And if I could bottle that up and give that to you guys, I sure would, because like that moment was something that I just wish you all can see. You will see it when he gets free, because there is that in him. Like that little kid, it's still there. All right. I got off on a tangent.
I'm still choking somewhat.
You're still joking.
Seriously, like I'm trying not to. It just happens. My throat gets so dry and then it just like closes and then I'm done. I'm like wiping my eyes and everything. But thank you, Angie, for taking over. Now I'm going to keep clearing my throat, which is annoying as all hell, but can't help it.
Okay, we didn't get snow today by us. I'll mute myself now.
You can stay unmuted.
No,
Justice
you
just
can stop.
crawled on my lap here. I don't know if you can see her. Say hi.
Hi, Justice.
Hi, puppy. Hi. I
I'll
know.
see you on Wednesday. All right,
Yeah.
I'm muting myself now.
You
I
can
get
mute
your
yourself now.
auto there. I'm gone. Am I gone?
Yes, you're muted now. Good job. Not that you had to, but okay. So yeah, Steve knows about the YouTube channels and he knows about the social media stuff. Steve does not understand social media as much as he thinks that he does. Let's just put that out there. I'm kind of yelling about it all the time just because he's heard of it and people have tried to explain it. He really doesn't understand it. But how could you? Because, he was in prison long before they had all this stuff. And he thinks he understands it, but let's face it, unless you're actually on it, it's really hard to understand. And Steve does not want internet when he gets out of prison. I don't know if anybody knew that, but Steve does not want internet. He doesn't even want Wi-Fi at all. He wants a phone that makes phone calls, and that's it. I said, well, it can be good for other things. You can use Google, and you can use Google Maps. He's like, I can buy a map. So that's how Steve feels about technology. But he hasn't had it. So he might change his mind when he actually gets out. Oh no, Brendan or Steve isn't angry with Brendan. No. Nope. Yeah, he does think the internet is evil. He really does. Which, considering like all the things he hears and people tell him, you can understand it. He gets tired of it. He doesn't really want to hear about drama. He doesn't like it. There's nothing he can do about it, so he would prefer not to hear about it. And unfortunately, some people do want to write and tell them every little thing, and he just doesn't really want to hear about it. It gets him upset sometimes. He doesn't remember anybody's names though. Like if I mentioned Eric Hosey's YouTube channel, yeah, chance of him remembering that are pretty much zero. So, yeah, I'm surprised he remembers my name most days. It would be really nice if Steve could do, when Steve can get to chat with his supporters. And I think people have heard Steve enough to know he laughs a lot. He likes to laugh. He's a goof. Got a goofy sense of humor. He's very sarcastic. Steve's got Steve's got two favorite sayings. One is his favorite. I said, if anybody asks a question, what is Steve's favorite saying? I'm like raising my hand. I can tell you right now, you got that right. You got that right. He says more like that. You got that right. Says it 20 times a visit, at least. And he makes his face when he says what? When you say he'll go, what? That's how he does it. You got that right. Yep. He says it all the time. It's hilarious. And he says it different ways for like different meanings. But just like how some people talk about the family in the documentary, they say, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, Steve is just like, you got that right. And it's pretty funny sometimes. I could say it with him sometimes because I know how he's going to say it. No, Steve's not really worried about it, about what anything in the motion. Yeah, he's not too concerned about it. He just, in general, Steve handles things, and Brendan too handles things much better than we do. Because they're used to it. It's actually more of a shock if they would ever win on anything. Like I'm pretty sure Brendan was probably shocked when he won, when they overturned his conviction, because they're a lot more used to, not going their way. And so is everyone else that's in prison with them. It's just a rarity when things actually get ruled in a prisoner's favor. I'm not going to go into that stuff with him and his kids and stuff like that. That's private for him. Steve is kind of like the guy next door. I mean, he is. And I get, I will say this, take it for what it's worth. I was wondering. I always had I never got a bad vibe from Steve. I obviously think he's innocent. I've always, at least in the beginning, I've always tried to look at everything from every angle. I even looked at things from the point of view of him being guilty just to see if I could make sense of it. I couldn't. So I did wonder if I met him in person, if anything was going to change, was he going to be different in person? I didn't think so because I've talked to him so much, but I was concerned. And honestly, Steve does not send off a creepy killer vibe. He just doesn't at all. And, take that for what it's worth. And I fully admit that I could just be not, seeing what I want to see or whatever, but I just don't. He's a giant goof is what he is. He really is. We joke around. Steve doesn't really get mad. I mean, he certainly had every right to get mad at me or blow up at me because I'm kind of mean sometimes. But he doesn't. He never gets mad at me. No matter what comes out of my mouth or what I say, he never gets upset with me ever. And so this is not a guy that's got some serious anger management problems because he doesn't. Because trust me, there's times when I'm like, I don't know why you put up with me. And no, he never gets upset with me ever. How often does he see Kathleen? It depends on Kathleen's schedule. She's obviously very busy. And it's let's see, probably 3.5 hour drive from Chicago. I think, ideally, I think Kathleen tries to see him once a month, but I know sometimes it gets stretched out a little bit more than that, depending on her schedule. He tries to talk to her every 2 or 3 weeks, I think. If there's nothing going on, not obviously if there's stuff going on, he'll talk to her a little bit more, but I don't think Steve ever gets his hopes up too high. But he also never loses hope either. He knows it took 18 years for him to get out last time. He knows there's always a chance. But I don't think he ever will get his hopes up too high because there's been so much disappointment. Oh, Steve changes that daily. I'm always telling him like to stop guessing. He'll say maybe he'll be out by the rally. He's not going to be out by the rally. Okay. I mean, no, he's not. He changes his mind. I've already heard Steve say he was hoping to be out by his, 2 years ago by his birthday or by Christmas or by summer or by whatever. And I think he knows the reality of it. I think he just says that to keep his hopes up. So no, he has no idea. He's hoping he'll be out this year, but again, I don't even think that's realistic. I'm not going to talk about the stuff with politics. I won't talk about Steve's political views. That's again something he can keep private. He can answer that question himself one day. Yeah, I was going to get to this, but since you brought it up, I'm not going to lie. It concerns me a bit that the judge has not ordered a response from the state and set a schedule for them to respond. Mainly because it should have happened by now. It's not unusual for a judge to request a response from the state the next day or within a couple days. Waiting 2 weeks is long, but she doesn't have to ask for a response in order to grant a hearing. So I'm trying to stay positive and think that she's just going to grant a hearing and isn't going to bother asking for a response. She can't grant the motion itself. Like she can't overturn Steve's conviction without hearing from the state, but she can certainly grant a hearing without getting any type of response from them. But if she was going to order a response, she really should have done it by now. It's been way too long. I thought by the end of this week, and since she didn't, I mean, it's always possible. Somebody had commented in my group that she had a trial this past week. So maybe that's possible. But all it would take in order to request a response from the state is a 2 to 3 sentence letter. That would be it. The court is ordering a response from the state. The due date is this date and blah, blah, blah. That's it. That is all it requires. It is not anything that is complicated. Oh, Linda, you're going to the rally. Cool. I will be there. So it's a little concerning to me. I'm not going to lie, because I feel like she should have done it. If I'm trying to remain hopeful, I'm hoping that she's just going to order the hearing right away. Even that, though, should not take too long to order. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Like she's not required. It's actually would be weird for her to ask for a response if she already knew she was going to have a hearing. There's no point in asking for a response then. Usually only ask for a response if you want to get input from the other side and you're on the fence about ordering a hearing. You want to hear from both sides. Maybe there's enough there that she thinks that a hearing should be ordered outright. That shouldn't take more than a month. I mean, even a month is kind of stretching it. So it's been 2 weeks. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, if we don't hear anything then, yeah, I'm going to get a little nervous about it. No, rally is June 15th. I'm glad you said that, Linda, because honestly, I don't even know when it is. I just know I'll be there. Does Steve get angry about a situation? Well, of course. I mean, like anybody else, he has good days and bad days. He has some days where he's just really in a good mood and nothing bothers him. And he has some days where he's down. You know, he's frustrated and he's angry. We talk about it and he says that he's fine. He'll be perfectly fine leaving all that anger there when he walks out the door. He has no interest in carrying it with him. That doesn't mean he's not going to be suing a lot of people, but he's no interest in carrying any of the anger with him at all. He just wants to move on. No, we wouldn't hear a denial by now. I mean, it took her, she used almost the full 60 days when she did the denial on the CD because she would actually have to write out something. So, yeah, a denial would take probably at least 30 days, maybe even up to 60. But if she's going to order a hearing, she should say something or put something out there before then. I was looking at her docket and she has a full docket this week, but I didn't look very far out to see like when she has the next opening to try to guess when a hearing would be scheduled. I know that one guy thought that the date on the Court of Appeals docket meant that that's when a hearing was going to be scheduled. No, that was just like I said, that's just a placeholder. It's a date placeholder. And I had said that it's very unlikely that a hearing would be held in mid-May. I mean, it's not impossible, but she would have to get on the ball and actually order it soon. Because most judges can't get a hearing on their docket within a month. So you never know, though. And you have to work with the attorney schedules, too. And Kathleen's pretty busy. So, we'd have to find time when all the attorneys and the judge are all available. So it's possible it could be in May, but that would be really soon. If there's a trial, you mean like if he's granted a new trial? Well, personally, I don't think they'll ever be able to retry him. But the last trial was, over a month. I doubt she'll even mention Brendan this time in her order. Yes, the state can respond of their own volition as well, but I don't see them doing that. I said I would very much recommend, if I was the AG, that they don't respond unless they have to. Because why admit to anything? I wish there was more to talk about with that. There just isn't. I mean, we are in a holding pattern with that. I just don't think they could ever retry him. I think that Kathleen has thrown so much doubt on all of the evidence that I really think they would have a hard time retrying him. I just think that, I mean, they could. I mean, I can't say that. I'm not saying hard time as they wouldn't be able to, but if they don't think they can get a conviction, it'd be a waste of time. And I really think they'd have a hard time convicting him. So, yeah, I mean, they might just do it to save face, but I would think they would have a really hard time winning because Kathleen has called so much of the evidence into doubt. Okay, that's an interesting question, Lisa. Okay, she says, why has Brendan's motions appeals always been addressed to the warden of the prison, but Steve's motions appeals are addressed to the state? They're two different things. Brendan's appeal was a federal petition for a writ of habeas corpus. That's actually a civil petition. That is a violation. You're saying that this person, the warden, is holding me, illegally. So it's actually a civil petition for a criminal case. That's why it's addressed. It's the state, it's Brendan versus the warden, because the warden is the one that he's saying is illegally holding him. When you're talking about a state crime and in the trial system, then it's always the state versus whoever. So Brendan's state appeal, everything was always the state versus Brendan Dassey. The warden didn't become involved until it became a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. That's why. No, Steve does not really want to. Steve does not really want to stay in the state. He would like to get out of here as soon as he can. And yes, he wants to take his mom and dad with him. Give my thoughts on the en banc majority. Didn't I do that? Like back then? I went back and I actually saw a post of mine that I wrote before the en banc hearing where people were asking my opinion. And I have to say, I was actually pretty spot on. The only one that I got wrong was Sykes, is that I thought that Sykes might get Brendan more of a chance. I thought she could go either way, but I thought she would lean in Brendan's favor. And she's the only one I was off on. Like, I knew for sure. I said Wood and Williams and Robner are going to rule for Brendan. Absolutely. And I said that Easterbrook and Hamilton and Connie, I think it was, were for sure going to rule against Brendan. And then I said that Flom and Sykes were the wild cards. And I thought Flom would vote against him and Sykes would vote with him. And I just had Sykes backwards. So other than that, I had a pretty good read on it. Not that that's a good thing. I would have liked to have been wrong. Yes, Brendan still has state options. He can file a state petition for post-conviction relief like Steve has now. No, there's no conflict of interest when you're a judge, a Supreme Court judge, and then you're a federal judge. I mean, there's no conflict of interest from that. Judges get promoted. I mean, that doesn't change anything. And there's no conflict of interest just because an attorney clerked for a judge. It's really not that. Well, and I understand why she said she was trying to create new law, because technically that's the way they were reading it. I think that when Seth Waxman came on board and they actually filed the petition to the Supreme Court, I think he did a really great job of trying to streamline the petition in order to focus more on, we're not rewriting law. We're asking you to look at this, the existing law in a certain way. But essentially what they were saying is that if you are going to say that the investigators should not have been allowed to interrogate Brendan without an attorney or without a parent or anything that was not already part of clearly established law, they couldn't do it. They can't do that. That's why they couldn't look at the new social science evidence and say that, well, we know so much about wrongful convictions now that we need to take a better look at this. They can't do that under habeas review. They can do that under direct review, but not under habeas review. And that's the problem. Like, I hated that I actually understood why the Supreme Court denied it, because it's not as outlandish as you think. I mean, we don't like it because it's the habeas law that is stupid. That is what needs to change. And unfortunately, I don't see it ever changing. And that's the thing. Habeas is very specific. You have to go by clearly established Supreme Court law. And that's what they were doing. And Brendan's team tried very hard to say, but they didn't do enough. They didn't do enough to show that they took special care. And to be honest, the special care requirement isn't an in-depth analysis. It's just mentioning that you did it. It's like just showing that you did it. And that's where the line was, where I wasn't sure which way they were going to go on that. And unfortunately, they went the wrong way on it. Now, if Brendan had sought a petition for writ of certiorari on direct review, totally different situation. They could have overturned his conviction on direct review. And I think that the next person that is in Brendan's situation is going to think long and hard about going after direct review, because Brendan kind of opened the door for that. because under direct review, you don't have the whole high bar that's set by habeas review. And habeas review is probably the rule about habeas corpus, EDPA. EDPA is probably not going to be amended or be repealed because the states love it. States love it. It's very hard for a federal judge to overturn a state conviction. So they are not going to be on board with getting it amended because they don't want to lose any of their power to the federal judiciary. Unfortunately, there is nothing in the law that says that having a low IQ prevents you from understanding the Miranda warning. I know, it's sad. There's a lot that needs to be changed, but again, those things can't be changed on habeas review, unfortunately. Do you think the judge is intentionally making his wrongful incarceration? Which we're kind of jumping around. So what are you talking about, the judge in Steve's case? I mean, I wouldn't put it past her at this point. Like, and everybody knows, I don't say that lightly. I don't like talking about corruption with judges unless I've seen a picture with money changing hands. I don't like it. I don't think it adds anything to the conversation. I think it's just riles people up. I like facts and I like things, but I will say that I'm not going to go on a limb out and say she's corrupt because there's no evidence of that. We don't like her decisions, but I think that she has a very poor understanding of her job. I think that she does not know how to do her job well. Drizzen and Nyrider will have to file something. Yeah, I mean, it should matter. And there's a lot that should matter, but it doesn't. I mean, I went into detail about a case that, seriously, I'm drawing a blank right now because my brain, where, I mean, it was down in, it was in the Seventh Circuit, you know, where an 8-year-old confessed to murder, and they ruled it was a voluntary confession. And they didn't overturn it because of EPA. So, you know, I didn't think Brendan had a lot of a chance. I was actually surprised that they overturned it to begin with. You know, there's a lot that should be changed. That's the thing. Our system is not just a little broke, it's a lot broke. So, you know, but how do we change that? It's so hard. It is so hard to do. I think as long as judges are, circuit court judges are elected positions, I think as long as DAs are elected positions, it's never going to change because they always care more about votes than they care about doing their job. Justice is not the most important thing to a DA, and it's not the most important thing to a judge. It's just not. Some judges, I hate when people make generalizations. I actually just yelled at Steve about this the other day. I hate when people make generalizations, so I will not say all of them. There are probably some very good judges, some very fair judges, but there are also a lot that care more about. I said this before, that they care more about trying to keep their job than they are about doing their job. They pander for votes. And anybody that thinks it doesn't happen is just sticking your head in the sand. Of course it happens. When politics are involved, it happens. And there is supposed to be no politics when it comes to justice. Justice is supposed to be blind, but it's not. Not even close. It is. It's frustrating. And I don't think most people don't realize how, you know, how bad it is until you start looking into a case like this, or you start following a case like this, or it happens to somebody you care about. Yes, April 2nd, everybody vote. In Wisconsin, at least, you know, we're voting for Supreme Court. So vote, everybody vote. I was just looking today, I was looking up a bunch of stuff on 97406 petitions, and it gets a little depressing at times because case after case after case after case is, you know, the pro se applicant is appealing a decision of the circuit court for denying their 97406 without a hearing. It is so common. And that's what I try to make people understand, that, you know, while we look at it from the point of view as this judge is just against Steve, it's not just him. Again, I don't know the exact percentage, but at least 98% of prisoners, they are ruled against at every turn. And some of these have tried 3-4 petitions and they're overruled and without hearings. I know that Kathleen tried to say that, you know, you have to have a hearing. No, they don't. You, more often than not, there is not a hearing than there is one. It's just, it's sad. I mean, it, you know, that it is so hard for somebody to get out of prison, and it's meant to be hard. It's meant to be hard. It's not meant to be easy to get out of prison if you're in there. But with all this education we have now on wrongful convictions, there has to be a better avenue, for prisoners to use that have good cases, of innocence. Now, I don't want to be all like, like Shawshank Redemption, where they say everybody in here is innocent. Clearly, most prisoners are going to say they're innocent, and they're obviously all not. But when you look at a case and there are definitely some clear signs that something is wrong, that an investigation was mishandled, anything like that, there should be another way for those prisoners to get their case looked at other than just a standard appeal. And yeah, the Innocence Project can be helpful, but they can only take so many cases, and they really only look at DNA cases. They don't really look at any other cases other than DNA cases, because those are the easiest to win. When you don't have DNA, not many lawyers are interested in championing your cause, because it's a lot of work. Did I hear about the Florida exoneration? I read a lot of headlines about exonerations, but I'll be honest, I don't read all the articles, so I don't always know where they're from. But I mean, I read them every day. Does Steve get a huge amount of mail? Yeah, I mean, yeah, he does. But I mean, there was obviously a big influx right after MAM 2, where also he started getting a ton of mail again. It's tapered off a bit, but I know Steve hasn't answered anything in a couple months either. That's not true. He's answered a couple I know of, but he hasn't answered any letters in the last couple months for various reasons. So that means that probably a lot of people haven't been writing again because he hasn't responded. So yes, I am a huge proponent of conviction integrity units. And people will sometimes say, well, yeah, but they're government run, so what's the difference? Well, there is a difference because we're seeing them make a difference. Just because they are established by the government doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be good, because the government wouldn't be establishing them if they weren't interested in trying to clear some of these wrongful convictions. And that's what you need. Because if a wrongful or a conviction integrity unit takes on a case and they find out the person is innocent, within a day that person can be out of prison. You don't have to worry about, well, you don't have to worry about proving that you're innocent or doing testing or doing anything else. If they can prove that you're innocent and they are satisfied you're innocent, they can just drop the charges. They can dismiss your case. That's why it's important. Whereas going through regular channels, and even with the Innocence Project, you might have to wait for, like I said, DNA testing. And in Steve's 1985 case, we all know that it took them a year just to test that pubic hair. That could have been tested right away in a private lab. Steve could have been out a year earlier, but he didn't have the resources for that at the time. That's funny, Jen, because my daughter is actually summoned for jury duty in April as well, which she's never had to do before. But I gave her the lecture about, she has to do her civic duty and she needs to take it seriously, and that if she sits on a jury, it's an important responsibility, and that somebody's life or liberty could be at stake. And so you don't just sit there and worry about when you're going to get home for dinner, or, act like it's a waste of your time, or complain about having to sit there all day, because, people's lives are on the line sometimes. So you have to take it seriously. Okay, yeah, I'll look at that. I'll look at the case about if you can put the name, do you have the names there of who was exonerated in Florida? Because it might be easier for me to search for it. I've always been that annoying person who lectures people who complain about jury duty. I've actually gotten into fights with people about it. Because from my point of view, it is the one place, the one time that you have a say in the justice system. And for people to complain that they're going to miss a day of work, or that they have to pay for parking, or that it's going to be boring, or all those things, just infuriates me. It does. And then also, a lot of times people are just assuming if a person was arrested, they must be guilty. And it's always been a problem. Like, so this is not new for me. I've been doing this for years, yelling at my friends for complaining about jury duty. Yeah, I had to get out of jury duty because they scheduled it during my honeymoon. Like back when I mean, this is over, 22 years ago. But I'd never been called for jury duty before. And then they called me when I'm going to be on my honeymoon. Luckily, where I live, it's a small county. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, here. They put a calendar in front of me. Just pick whatever 2 weeks they work for you. I'm like, okay, there. And I did serve on a jury. It was a drunk driving case, so it wasn't like anything crazy. That's the only time I was actually summoned last year for jury duty, but they ended up not needing me. Me, the person that actually would like to be on a jury, even though lawyers would hate me. And I didn't get called. My husband just did jury duty a few months ago, and he was called. And yeah, my husband was one of those people that's kind of dreading it because, he's like, whatever. He actually got a lot out of the experience. You hate to say you enjoyed it, but he actually really learned a lot and he got a lot out of the experience and he made the most of it there and he took it very seriously. So I was proud of him for that. I want to be like a jury education specialist and explain to a jury what their job is and to take it seriously because I don't think it's right that jurors are not properly educated. Getting stupid jury instructions from a judge that is mostly legalese that they're not going to understand anyway does not help. I mean, read the jury instructions sometimes from a judge that they say one time. And how are people going to really understand what their role is, what their duty is? Like I want to be like a moderator in a jury. One of my biggest pet peeves is the whole like, we took a preliminary vote. Because in my mind, you shouldn't be taking a preliminary vote. You shouldn't have any opinion other than innocent until you've looked at the evidence. So if you go in a jury room and everybody's automatically thinking guilty, well, then you're not doing it right because you shouldn't think they're guilty until you've discussed and looked at every piece of evidence. Then you should. Just sitting in the courtroom isn't enough. You have to go over it all. You need to discuss it. You need to come to some majority. But I hate that. I always hate that when I see that, these preliminary votes or whatever, because everybody should be thinking he's innocent because you haven't discussed and gone over the evidence yet. Yeah, there are definitely not enough educated people on juries. And that's no offense to anybody, but you look at a trial that is very technical. You have these technical experts that have years of education, and they're talking to people that have, sometimes at best, a high school diploma or even a GED, maybe. And that's no offense to anybody, but are you really going to understand all of that expert testimony about DNA and about all this stuff when, especially when you're expected to remember it all? You can't take a lot of notes. You're supposed to remember this stuff. It's ridiculous. And yes, one strong juror can absolutely influence an entire room. I know it's happened. Oh my gosh, I've already thought about doing videos, my PSA about what to do if you're like stopped by police, that people, I'm surprised sometimes with this case how many people still don't fully understand what their rights are. And I've already thought a couple times about doing a PSA video like, here's the deal. This is what you have to do. This is when you have to stay. This is when you can leave. This is what, like, because a lot of people don't know. A lot of people think if you're Mirandized that you can't leave an interrogation. Yeah, you can, unless you're under arrest. Yeah, I would be the 12 Angry Men guy. And the thing is that 12 Angry Men is actually one of my favorite movies. I've mentioned this before, and yet it is so full of juror misconduct. It's funny. I don't care. I still love it anyway. Mm. So yeah, I could do a thing on like, this is what you need to do when you're on a jury. This is what you do when you're going to law school and you're going to become a prosecutor. Don't be an unethical asshat. There you go. Okay, so I have been on a while. So are there any other final questions that I want to, especially if Eric Hosey is going to do a video, so he's probably waiting for me to finish. Stop talking so he can get going. You can get, I mean, people have the option to have a bench trial, but I'm not always confident the judge is going to be much better than a jury. I won't even ask why you've been in so many interrogations, Eric. Unless you're under subpoena or under arrest, you can get up and walk out anytime you want. Okay. That's good. I'm still going to try to wrap it up since I'm dying of thirst. Yeah, the Know Your Rights video. Yeah, I thought about it and I kind of just let it go out of my mind because I didn't want to be that person where everyone's like, well, what do you know? I thought about teaching calling the local school, the college, and saying can I teach a class on civil rights at night? I know I'm not a lawyer or anything, but please, can I just do it? Because it frustrates me so much that people don't know their rights, especially adults. They just don't. They don't always know. Don't ever learn about your rights from TV because it's almost never right. You must have been a hellion. I have never been interrogated in my life. I've had to do some interviews. I've never interrogated anybody because I wasn't a cop. But oh yeah, a bench trial would be one judge. It's only a 3-judge panel when you're talking about an appeal. And even then, you can still sometimes have a 1-panel judge if it's depending on what the crime is. Yes, please trick you into answering. The one thing that I wanted to tell people about is passive waiver of your Miranda rights. Because people think if you say I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, I'm going to invoke my Miranda rights. That's it. Well, if you ever, this does happen on TV shows. Actually, you'll see that the cops will start talking to each other. I'm not going to ask you any questions. I'm just going to talk. The minute you open your mouth again, doesn't matter what it is, that can be considered a passive waiver of your rights because you said you were going to remain silent and you didn't. And it doesn't always stick, but I wouldn't take the chance. Yeah, just the answer. Yeah, if you keep talking or if you say you're going to remain silent and then you don't, then that's considered that you just passively signed away your rights to it. Doesn't matter. And the courts have already ruled, doesn't matter if you don't sign the paper, doesn't matter. Yeah, if you're not under arrest or not under subpoena, you can get up and walk out. And some people say, well, what if they arrest you? Fine, but then you get a lawyer. They're not going to get anything else out of you. I mean, if Brendan had known that he could walk out, could they have arrested him? They could have tried. I doubt they would have, but they could have tried. Well, if he'd been arrested, then for sure he would have gotten a lawyer before he would have talked to anybody again. Okay, so I'm just rambling on now. So, okay, anything else? Any other questions anybody has about anything? Angie's been there so patiently, waiting quietly. Angie, do you have anything else to add? No? Are you nodding? No. Your picture's like this big. I can't see that. Okay, well then I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you. All right, so now you guys can go take a break and then go watch Eric Hosey's video afterward. You guys get a little bit of a break, like 20 minutes maybe. All right, you guys, everybody have a good night, and I will talk to you soon.